Let's take 3 deep breaths to get ourselves centered. And with a deep in-breath. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. All right, I'm going to do a screen share now. And here it is. Can you see it, Sam?
Yes.
So it's a little different today. I just scroll through it. Second tier circle. I got the date right, May 17th. What we've been studying is how to experience a void mind. So as we go through these, each line is not going to pop up one by one. Rather, we're just going to see the whole screen. How to experience a void mind, a mind that is not ruminating, nor attached to outcomes, nor past events, nor selfish desires. A void mind. My mind sure likes to ruminate. And this morning it was ruminating on outcomes. What's second tier circle going to be like? I did some ruminating on past events, things that had happened in the past that I hadn't resolved yet. And I also ruminated on a selfish desire. That is what I was going to have for breakfast. Because I was thinking I want this and that. You know, selfish desires. I don't think that just having selfish desires is the issue. I think it's when we're attached to our selfish desires. In other words, I had a desire for some fruit and toast this morning, but if the fruit hadn't been available and I'd forgotten to buy some bread for toast, could I easily switch to something else? So that's the issue. Are we willing to acknowledge our desires, which are for ourselves, selfish, but not be attached to them? And then, of course, the final state is that void mind. And we talked about having a transition or a bridge to get to a void mind by using a repeated phrase when our mind starts ruminating. And we looked at the prayer of St. Francis. Last week, we just looked at the first third of it because it's a long prayer. Today, I thought we would look at the middle part, and next week we can look at the ending of it. I added the first line here. To the middle part. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy.
That's very good. I like that one. Thank you very much for putting that together. That's wonderful.
Now we might think that these apply to our experience of the world. There's doubt in the world, despair, darkness in the world, sadness. Actually, these apply to us, not the world.
Right.
Not the world, because our job is not to fix people, but to look at ourselves. So Where there is doubt, what does it look like when there's doubt within us? So let's see, where there is doubt, let me bring faith. So what's an example of where there's a doubt within us? What's a doubt within us look like?
It usually starts when I say the word I can't.
I can't hear you.
How about that's too hard?
Yeah.
How about I'm not good at that?
Right.
Or how about I can never?
Yeah.
So what then is the faith that we need to find?
It's the internal trust that's always there, the shining light that we have to somehow bring the courage to light.
Sure. It's the faith in ourself. And it's reaching through the mind, through the doubts, all the words, down into the courage, which is in our heart.
Right. Right.
And letting that faith shine through. Yeah, I think that's right.
It's also, it seems like for me, that when I'm in my judgmental self that I can't, then there's the bigger need is trust to take that small step, knowing I'm going to fail, but it's not failure, it's a learning opportunity, right? So,
Right.
and allowing that to be okay, that I wasn't judging myself when I was a baby trying to sit up and then trying to stand and then trying to walk. I failed 10,000 times. Failed, right? Anyway.
Right. Like it's said in the Tao Te Ching, which is more dangerous, success or failure?
Right.
I guess you have to remember that in every difficult situation you've been in throughout your life, you've succeeded to get you to this point. So it hasn't been a failure. You've conquered everything.
Right.
One way or another.
So success and failure are those, is that people language? And the Dhamma language is when they reach down deep and say, well, there's only what's ours to do. Where there's doubt. Okay, well, good. We can use those thoughts when we do a little exercise. Let's go on to the next one. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. So have any of us ever felt a sense of despair?
Well, I just did a few minutes ago. I was immediately, I thought, oh, I'll never be able to be on a Zoom meeting again. This isn't working and I don't know how to fix it, you know. So when it finally came back on, it brought me hope. Just a little thing, but these things happen every day.
It's true. Yeah, these aren't necessarily major lifetime situations. They're just little things that come up and how we experience them. Where there's despair, let me bring hope. Thank you, Jan. Well, here's one. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. And I want to comment that there's two kinds of darkness. There's a darkness that is the field of unknowing, which is a blessed state, like a little kid has, where we were in the darkness of not knowing and we're open to whatever shows up. I think this darkness is a different kind of darkness. I think this darkness is more like a depression. So where there's that kind of darkness, let me bring your light. Does that resonate?
That's one definition. Another definition of darkness may be the confusion within, like the paradox that we talked about.
Right.
And moving through that, or sleeping on it, if you will, or rather than how do I say it? Rather than having a specific strategy, like our bike ride,
Right.
yeah. But letting go and let things happen as they will, and then we decide last minute we should cancel. That was probably the better of the strategy, and letting that light shine as we make the steps towards, the best ideal for all.
Right.
Yeah.
I see this kind of darkness of like a despair or depression as just sort of a big thing. And we have a light within us, we can shine on it like a flashlight and look at it and say, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to buy into it, even though I have it. I'm just going to look at it with my light, or the Christ light, I think is what's meant here.
The other definition also is like maybe if I'm feeling envious or jealousy, if I let that go, there's the Christ light within.
Let the Christ light shine on your envy or jealousy. Yeah. And then the last one here is, where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Now this is interesting for me, because I think we are all given the ability to experience emotional feelings. It's just part of being human. Sometimes we feel sad, maybe we cry. Sometimes we feel happy and laugh. Sometimes we feel afraid, and sometimes we feel angry. I think this kind of sadness is an internalized sadness that we've decided to put into our hearts, and like the Buddhists say, water that sadness so it stays alive for us. So where would the joy come from to dilute or wash away that sort of sadness?
Oftentimes for me, it's letting go of that thought of that particular strategy.
So where there is sadness, let me bring joy. I don't think this means when something happens, maybe there's a death, for example, we feel sad and grieving and we cry. That may not be a time to bring joy, because that's a legitimate sadness that came up and we're experiencing it, and it's really good to fully experience that sadness. And when we fully experience the sadness, then it goes away all by itself.
Yes, that's, the actual feeling, the feelings of mourning. Yeah, I understand now.
So this is a sadness that's happened. I think I mentioned this before when I lived in Lebanon. The tradition there is for a woman, when her husband dies, she puts on black and wears black. And some women wear that for the period of mourning, and some women choose to wear it for the rest of their lives.
Oh.
So everyone will know when they see them in the market or on the street that their husband has died. It's like planting the sadness in your heart and advertising it, letting everybody know. So why not let that sadness go and take off those black clothes after the feeling of sadness has completely worked through you and you've experienced it, and allow the joy of life, which is who we are, to return. How to do that? Let's do a little exercise now. We've already internalized this by discussing it. Let's internalize it in our hearts by repeating it together, and then silently to ourselves. Everybody ready?
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. I'll speak it, we'll speak it together, and then speak it silently in your heart. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Together.
Lord,
Make me an instrument
of your peace.
Peace.
silently. Where there's doubt, let me bring faith. Together. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Silently. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Together. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Silently. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Together. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Silently. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Together. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Silently to yourself. Anything anyone would like to share before we go on?
I just want to share, I like that exercise. Hearing it, speaking it, and then sharing it again in silence.
We can choose lines like this that particularly speak to us and memorize them and use them in our daily life when something comes up. So these are wonderful mantras.
They're all really relevant right now, aren't they?
They are.
I have this hanging framed in my bedroom. I've always loved it.
The whole prayer?
Yes, the whole prayer.
Wonderful. So avoid mind. We can use any of these lines when our minds take off as a bridge to experience avoid mind. This is a bit of review before we move on. Bodhidasa said, do work of all kinds with a mind that is void. That we should do every kind of work with a void mind is a warning, he said, that the busy and agitated mind, which jumps into things with attachment, always becomes dark and clouded with delusion. It's full of worries and fears and becomes gloomy and insecure. So we can use lines like these from the prayer of St. Francis to calm down our busy and agitated mind and to step back from attachment and avoid experiencing gloom and insecurity and worries and fears about the future. All of these illnesses begin with attaching and clinging to selfish desires. Now he has a list of selfish desires. So here's some selfish desires that we may have experienced in our life: fame and money. Now, if we think about fame as a sort of fame that a Hollywood movie star has or a politician. I don't think that's the kind of fame that's mentioned here. That just applies to someone else. This fame is when there's a moment when we feel personal fame in our family because someone has said something that makes us feel outstanding and really special and different from others. Or maybe in our work. In our work, we have a moment of fame when we're pointed out as being different from others because of something we said or did. So to the extent that we internalize that and say, wow, that's who I am. I'm this great person in my family or at work, and become attached to it, that's how the selfish desire can get in our way. If we can rather look at a particular moment of fame or any moments of fame that show up for us and step back from them and see that the real value there is that the person or persons who see us having some fame right now, this speaking to us, giving to us this feeling of fame, it makes them feel good and is a gift to themselves. So the fame you're feeling has more to do with it being a gift to the person or persons who are handing out the fame. And if we can step back from it like that, then we don't internalize it. So when you yourself will praise someone and put them in a position of fame, well, that's really wonderful for you. And if they internalize it and wish that's who they always were, that could be an issue for them. Of course, we all know about money, being over-attached to money. I think it was Susan who mentioned that if we look at money as energy instead of money, it helps to loosen up our graspingness on money. One of the things I do in my stock market account is it goes up and it goes down. My 401k goes up and it goes down. I look at those things in my 401k as investments I have. And if someone wants to pay me a little bit more than what they're worth today, great. If someone wants to pay me less than what they're worth today, well, I just won't sell them right now. I don't have to. These are all techniques from stepping away from fame and money. Profit and loss. Again, that stock market report I get. Oh, made some profits today. Oh, lost some money. Can we step back from those profits and loss and see that they're just things that happen independently of us and don't really affect who we really are? Happiness and unhappiness. Isn't it built into our Declaration of Independence or Constitution, the pursuit of happiness? Pursuit of happiness, right? Now we're told, well, it's fine to pursue it, but if you get it, watch out. Because if you internalize it, then you're sure to experience unhappiness when you're not feeling that happiness anymore. Again, the ability to step back from our own happiness or unhappiness and say, that's interesting. It's one of those things that come and go, but it's not who I am. Praise and blame. Maybe we're not so much attached to praise and blame, but I know someone in the public sphere who is very attached to praise and only wants individuals around him who praise him and fires people that don't. And particularly people that blame him, they're likely to get fired. So having praise and blame internalized is a selfish desire. Can we look at praise just like fame? When we're praised, this has a benefit to the one praising us, not to us. We just step back from it. And when we're blamed for something, can we say, well, thank you internally, and see if maybe there's something that we did that's a lesson for us and we can make some changes, but we don't have to internalize the blame. And maybe look to see that the person blaming us may have some other issues going on and have some compassion for that person. So compassion for the person blaming us, while at the same time setting that event aside to look at it some future time and seeing if there's some lesson there. Buddhadasa says, don't get involved with these things. Experience them, but don't get involved. Get free of attachments, and the mind will be void. The mind will be brilliantly intelligent, as clear and sharp as possible. So if, through repeating of things like St. Francis' prayer, we cannot get involved with these things, the mind tends to be void. Who doesn't want to be brilliantly intelligent? Sounds like praise. As clear and sharp as possible. All your needs will be satisfied without the least bit of frustration or suffering. Sam and I and others spent a lot of time studying the Be Peace practice, which is now called the connection practice. And Sam has also studied nonviolent communication. The basis for these studies and the work we did was twofold. First part, to be able to identify feelings, emotional feelings that we have, and separate them from what aren't feelings. For example, I feel like going for a walk is not a feeling. Rather, feelings are anger, sadness, fear, so on. And what we learned is when those feelings come up, true feelings, there's probably or always an underlying need which has not been satisfied. Or if the feeling of joy comes up, there's an underlying need which has been satisfied. So these feelings which come up within us are associated with needs. And yet, if we go deep down into our spiritual essence, all our needs will be satisfied without the least bit of frustration or suffering. So feelings of frustration or suffering, anger, fear, may come up as something that come and go, but they won't be embedded in us because all our deepest needs are satisfied if we learn these techniques to achieve a void mind. Got it? So it's one thing to understand these teachings, and it's another thing to experience them. The result of working this way with the void mind is that we enjoy ourselves while working and that the work is done well because our minds are clear. We kept our minds clear of extraneous needs, and there are no worries about things like money. So this completes one part of his teaching. Now we're going about avoid mind. Now we're going to go into a different but related part. Any questions before we go ahead?
Steve, I really appreciate these thoughtful self-awareness moments that I have, and these classes helps to support the, am I in interpretation, evaluation, or am I looking at it as pure observation? And am I in my body to feel that body sensations of those feelings to uncover those beautiful needs? It really helps. So thank you. I'm appreciating these slides.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate them too, because I have to go over this stuff in my own insides. I prepare it. And I need to be constantly vigilant,
Yeah.
because new things come up, old memories I thought were long gone come up, new situations. So I need to use these teachings myself to keep myself peaceful and clear. So he says here, if we keep our mind void, the things we need, the real needs, are acquired in the usual ways, and all this without the attachment, forged by grasping and straining after fame or money or profit, happiness, praise. Okay, here we go. Surrender the fruits. We studied this from the perspective of the Bhagavad Gita, haven't we?
Ah, yes.
One of my favorite verses there is, you have a right to your actions. Where's Susan? She likes this one. You have a right to your actions, but never to the action's fruits. Act for the action's sake and do not be attached to inaction. Self-possessed, resolute, act with no thought of results, open to success and failure, equally to imposters. And this equanimity is yoga from the Bhagavad Gita. Let's see what Buddhadasa has to say about this. And to the voidness, surrender all of the fruits. When our work bears fruit in the form of money, fame, influence, status, we must give it all to the voidness. So when we get the money in the bank account, somehow can we step back from it, see it as energy? We get the fame, can we step back at it and see it as beneficial to others to feel that we're famous? When we experience having some influence, can we step back from it and let our Christ consciousness guide us so that we don't misuse our influence? If we experience a status as a result of our work, a status, who people think of us, in other words, an I am or a you are, can we step back from that as well so that we are spiritual beings having a human experience? That's the only status we need. So we need these little techniques in order to give it all to the voidness.
It's not easy, but it's well worth the experience.
It's not easy. Oh, maybe it is easy. Maybe it's not easy. Maybe we've got a barrier in our mind, and the barrier is it's not easy. Sometimes when we have these barriers, we can play with them. Well, it's not easy. Well, it's not easy. Well, it's easy. Well, it isn't easy. I notice that those are all mental constructs, which can either serve to support us on our spiritual path or erect an artificial barrier. We have to be so vigilant. You know, our mind, our reactive mind just pops up with things. Can we step back from our reactive mind? And here he goes. He's going to talk about some aspect of our mind. Don't be ignorant and cling to these things as belonging to me. My money. Nope, it's not your money. It's God's money. You're just the temporary custodian of it.
Hmm.
After
like
dead
that.
and gone,
Temporary custodian of my money, right?
yeah. It's not your money. You're just a temporary custodian, like at a school custodian. Remember, we went to school, we had custodians.
Yes.
And they cleaned up things and made the classrooms nice afterwards. And sometimes they were nice people. Well, that's our relationship with the money. We go keep it clean, put it away tidily, but it's not ours.
Very good.
Why? It's God's money.
Yeah.
We're entrusted with using it in service to others. Well, a little selfish desire now and then, as long as you don't get over attached to it and have a laugh about it and notice, oh, I'm satisfying my little selfish desire now. And how, by using the money to satisfy that little selfish desire, in the larger sense, can it make me a person who is more of service to others? My success belongs to me. My success. Like the Tao Te Ching says, my success, which is more danger? My success or my failure? Yeah, both of these are phantoms.
Yeah.
Phantoms, which depend on thinking of the self. My talent. We've all got talents. I think each of us has used our talent in our work, isn't that right? We use whatever talent we have to be successful in our work. Can we step back from that talent and say, well, I got it, and I'm happy I got it, but actually, I was born with it, and then I had the inclination, thank you, God, to develop it and polish it and craft it. But it's just there, it's not mine. It's something I've been given, thank you, God. Or my anything. So that's the challenge, to step back from things as being mine. This is what is meant by not attaching to the results of our work. We got results, but we're not attached to it. If we get one result, great. We get another result, great. Can we look at results as blessings or lessons? I had difficulty with that at one point in my life. I formed my own company along with two other fellows, and I had the idea that this was going to result in my permanent security. That's the result I was looking forward to, because I had gone through some aerospace reversals and had been laid off, and I didn't like it. Got laid off twice. So my need was for security. So when I formed this company, I had an ironclad need that I needed security. So I was attached to that result. And what did I experience? You can guess. Go ahead, guess.
It was successful?
Unfortunately, it was successful for a while, which built up my attachment to the security that I wanted.
Oh.
But then we made some unfortunate decisions and were attached to our decisions, and we had reversals and problems. And emotionally, I was no longer able to be a member of this company. It was a time when I was going through a divorce, lots of things going on with me. So I left the company. I was a failure in my eyes at that time. And the security that I was attached to vanished. And it reminded me, this was back in 1976. 1976 was the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. 1776, 1876, 1976.
Yeah.
And both my partners went off to celebrate 1976. One went to Boston, I think, and watched the ships go up and down the harbor in this great 1976 celebration. What did I do? I wasn't taking any vacations. I was too worried about my security, and so I was just overworking, which had the opposite effect. It didn't support my mental well-being and made me less effective. So I was attached to the results of my work. It was a great lesson. It seemed hard at the time, but as I look back on it, I'm grateful. Not being attached to the results of our work. Most of us blindly cling to our successes. Oh, I did. And so our experience of successes increases our selfish desire. Yeah, more security. So successes fool us, our experience of successes, by increasing our selfish desires. Let ourselves be careless only for a moment, and we will fall into pain immediately due to the weight of attachments and anxieties. See how that applied to me? Careless for a moment. What was the careless moment? It's when I entered into that idea that I was going to have my own business in that moment, and I attached to this idea of security. And there probably was a pain immediately, although I don't remember feeling it. We were exalted, but the weight of attachments and anxieties finally got me. Well, we're almost ready to close here. It's about 10:02. In truth, this kind of mental or spiritual pain is always happening to us. Before long, if we aren't careful, the pain manifests itself physically in the body. Yeah, I had some physical reactions. Some people have nervous breakdowns, might a divorce, or go insane, while others develop one of the numerous varieties of neurosis so prevalent in the world today, even though they may be famous, knowledgeable, and wealthy. All this pain results from the fact that people the world over have misunderstood, abused, and ignored their own religions. So that's a segue for next week. We're going to look at our own religion and see the teachings there that support this consciousness. Any questions before we close, or comments?
These are some profound inner spiritual aha moments. Is like this awakening within. It's how do you know if you're going through a certain attachments until you're actually through the other side. Sometimes I think it's easier looking backwards, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah. Interesting.
And yet we can develop the skills through these sayings, spiritual sayings, which we can use and bring up to keep ourselves detached.
Yeah.
We can do it. It's just a matter of practice.
Yeah. The practice, yes. Thank you, Steve. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Shall we close with an Om?
Yes.
So I'm going to close the share now. Here we are. Let's take 3 conscious breaths. And the deep in breath. Shanti, shanti, shanti. bless us as we go forth today. Thank you, friends. God bless. We'll see you.
See you in church.
See you in church. Okay, here I go. I'm gonna.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, guys.